We're starting on our backs, and you'll notice I've got a head cushion, and it's the thick head cushion to start off with. So something, providing it's comfortable in the neck, that brings you up that little bit higher so far as the back of the head and its relationship with the back of the shoulder blades. And the reason being is you'll notice that as you bring your head up a little higher and it being supported, you get a slightly more obvious sense of where the bottom of your rib cage is behind you. And we're going to use that as a cue throughout the session. So it's just bringing some attention to that point of view. If you bring your knees into your chest separately to start off with, and you're relaxed, nice and heavy through the thighs, relaxed through the shins and through the feet, and you're going to place your hands on the tops of your knees. So having the hands here gives you a little bit of an opportunity to gently draw the thigh bones a little deeper into the sockets. So if you apply pressure, and that's okay for you on the knees, just think about the thigh bones becoming a little heavier. There's that feeling of let go throughout the surrounding tissue at the top of the thigh bone here. So that's really mainly through the hip flexors at the front of the body. And then you're going to start to circle these thigh bones out and away from each other. Notice that they do move in symmetry. They move in towards the body, out and away, and then they regroup. It doesn't matter which way you started to circle the legs. We're going to do both directions. So nothing's set as to where you should be starting. Just a reminder to keep the shins and feet relaxed. It's the best possible way to begin to switch off through the quad system at the front of the legs, and that's coming into your hip flexors as well. As much as you can, you want to imagine that the arms and the hands are doing the work. They're in control. They're turning this lever and rotating it round. Change direction. Being aware of pace, symmetry, sensation within the hips. How does it feel for you? Particularly if there's some unexpected tightness occurring for you throughout the lower back. So as well as you circling and creating some space within the capsule of the hip, you're also generating some fluid involvement, so you're getting things oiled up within the joint. You also might find that you're generating a little bit of friction so far as how your lower back and your thigh bones meet. You might even feel that you begin to create some heat through the lower back just as you're circling round here. Now once you bring the knees back together again this time, still staying as relaxed as possible. You could choose to come off your head cushion now if you wanted to, depending on how your neck feels. But you're going to bring your feet separately down onto the floor, come into your toes apart and heels into line position so you get a sense of your narrowness. Notice how these back ribs feel. Can you just sense where the rest of the body is lining up? In fact, I'm just going to switch to my little cushion now rather than stay on the thick, but the choice is yours. And then we're going to come into clock. So as long as initially you feel the back of the head against the floor, just notice where your gaze is. You feel the bottom of the rib cage, and again that higher cushion has enabled that relaxation through the backs of the ribs a little more. So far as where you start with your pelvis is quite relevant, and then narrow parallel of your feet, and you've brought those toes next to each other and then out and into line. So you know you're well aligned through the leg. Let's start by rocking the pelvis towards 6 and 12. And the reason why its starting position was a little irrelevant is because you didn't really need to be in any particular position to start with. It'll just mean that maybe when you rocked to 6 you were slightly there already, or vice versa. So just now bringing your attention to Do you feel you're managing to rock straight through the center of the pelvis and back? Notice how it feels so far as your connection with pelvis and floor. Any bias? So as you're tilting towards and away, do you notice whether you deviate to the right or left at all? Or can you sort of streamline the idea of the rock? Notice how it feels for you. Particularly how it feels in extension, where the pelvis is rocked away from you to number 12. Because you want to be mindful. You want some mobility here through the lower back segment, but you're not going to force the pelvis into a too large a range to begin with. So 6 and 12. After you finish these last movements of 6 and 12, and again you're hoping this feels more and more natural to be, could you feel that you're right in the center of 6 and 12 as a dial now? You're then going to start to tilt the pelvis between 3 and 9. And depending on your previous experience of either using the mini ball or the hot water bottle, there is nothing to stop you from bringing either of those props into play and doing this whole opening sequence of pelvic clock on one of those props. So notice how it feels. See if you can clock potentially where your center point is without actually stopping in your center point. Notice whether you're having to work particularly hard to drop down onto one side or whether it feels quite easy. Just watch your experience. Just a reminder to keep sending one thigh bone away from you. And be aware of swaying knees side to side. Settle the pelvis somewhere in the middle. And we're going to start to circle around this center dial, drawing the pelvis to 6 to begin with, nice and free through the neck and shoulders. Taking the pelvis over to 3, away from you to 12, around to 9, and then back to 6 again. Continue to circle round in this way. So notice how whenever returning to a center point, around to 9 and back to 6, I'm going to circle round just like this, experiencing how it feels to be on the very outer edge of the dial, 3 to 12 to 9 to 6, and then finishing off one last circle. Notice how it feels. Whilst you're trying to edge the outer rim of the circle, just notice how it feels, particularly whether it feels like you're sort of missing gaps here and there, just so you build up a profile on how your body is behaving at the moment. Back to 6 now, and we're changing so we go in the opposite direction. So you'll go over to 9, outer edge to 12, across the body to 3, and then that will bring you into your 6th position. So over to 9, to 12, to 3, how is that? And then to 6. I'm going to do 4 in total. And of course you could do another set if you wanted to, depending on your experience. Having skirted the outer edge of that dial, you're now finishing just through the center. Arms are going to be relaxed beside you. Again, check in with the backs of the ribs, particularly the backs of the ribs. Notice their relevance and relationship to the floor. Could you maintain that? As you breathe in, and as you do so, you're going to take the arms up and backwards. And as you breathe out, you'll bring the arms all the way back down again. We haven't done arm arcs for a few sessions, so just some reminders that you're going to breathe into the back of the body in order that you try to maintain those ribs to mat. You've also got the outward rotation of the upper arms. That's something I do have to frequently remind people of, so check in with yourself. It would mean that if you rotate outwards through the upper arms, then the palms are facing in towards each other, and exhale to return. And then probably the most important aspect of this initial arm arc is that you're allowing your shoulder girdle to move. So breathing in, outward rotation into the mat behind you, shoulder girdle move. So there's a feeling of slippery, slidey blades on the back of you. One more. Again, you could continue. Again, you could reduce the range depending on your experience, depending on how your shoulders are currently. If you pause at the ceiling, you're going to breathe in from here and come into open and close. Same idea, you breathe into the back of the body and you breathe out to bring those arms back to the ceiling. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Now, we're not going to do a separate breathing setup for this session, so you could use something as simple as arm arcs to combine the breathing sequence that we've regularly done as an opener. Inhaling through your nose, feel the breath into the mat behind you and wide into the side ribs. You will get some rise and fall through the front of the body, although it's not the area you want to dominantly fill with your breath. And last one, breath in to open and breath out to close. You take an inhale here with your fingers to the ceiling, and as you breathe out, the backs of the shoulders peel away from the floor. As you breathe in next, you can think about reconnecting from the inner borders to the outer borders. Exhale, outer borders peel away first, and then inhale, connecting back inner borders to outer borders. And those borders, they're descriptions of your blades, inner borders being closest to the spine, outer borders being furthest away from the spine. Also notice that when the shoulder blades are down, there is some space between them. There is some space between the back of the blades and the mat. When you peel the blades away from the floor, that space is filled up, and you could think of the sternum softening, dropping back into that space. The sternum gently moves away from the floor and then reconnects with the floor. So there's a relative movement through the front of your rib cage to the backs of the shoulders movement. So you can combine the two actions as working synergistically with each other. After you've done this last one, you're going to bring your arms down beside you, just check in. Notice how you've managed to maintain the torso and the arrangement through the clock and through the rib cage. And then you're going to bring yourself onto your side for book openings. Come over, thicker cushion. Your knees are bent. The soles of the feet are in line with the back of the body. And you're going to move your head cushion back. So just resting your head down, you literally just have your ear there. That's because you want the back of the head to stay back and in line with everything else. Arms on top of each other. Regular book openings to begin with, and then this is going to change into a chalk circles action. So a reminder that as you breathe out, you open the arm to the ceiling and you continue that movement round. As you meet yourself, you find your end of range through the middle spine. Just allow the hip to drop back. So you begin to involve part of the lower back area. Inhale when you're open. As you exhale, that section of the lower back that you may or may not have incorporated into this rotation already is what starts you coming all the way back. Breathe out to open to the ceiling. Come round. Notice where your end of range is. Notice what makes you stop. Is it ribs? Is it shoulder? Is it chest? And then just allow your top left pocket, in my case, to drop back. As you exhale, send that pocket forwards. The rest of the body follows, and that brings you all the way back round again. Exhaling to open. Keep winding round. Keep dropping through the rib cage. Feel like the ribs drop back into you as much as possible. And then allow the hip to get involved. Take a breath in. And as you breathe out, hip goes forward first. And that brings you all the way back. One more, but depending on how much sense of unraveling tightness you might have experienced, you could do a few more here. If you feel like you need a few more just to loosen up a little, there should definitely be a feeling of difference from your first rotation to your last rotation. As you breathe out this time, what you're going to do is bend the elbow, the arm stays on top of the arm. You're rotating in the same way, and you're going to allow the hip to move quite freely quite early on. You then open that arm looking at it. So imagine you've done a book opening and come all the way around. Now, depending on shoulder mobility, you're going to try to keep the fingers close to the floor as they arc round above your head. They're going to keep coming round. The elbow is lengthened but soft at the elbow joint, and that brings you all the way back onto your side. So a few more of these. These are chalk circles. You bend the elbow of your top arm, the arm strokes up and across the collarbones. You then unfold that arm and glance towards it. You'll take a breath in. As you breathe out, depending on where this arm is, it just doesn't come up any higher. So if it's on the floor now, can you trace a line above your head with your fingertips? This is the arc, this is the circular action. And that will eventually bring you round onto your side. We're going to do two more of these. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, elbow bends, relaxed approach. Hand comes across the body, and that's just a guide to getting you here. Inhale when you're open, and as you exhale, fingers stay low. So as I said, if your arm is slightly away from the floor when you start, no big deal. See if you can keep it that distance away from the floor all the way round. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Once you're back on your side, you're going to take yourself round to the other side and do the same thing. Knees are bent, organisation with the soles of the feet, and bring that arm underneath you. So book openings to begin with. As you breathe out, open your top arm up to the ceiling. See if you can just determine how much range do you have of just ribs, a sense of just ribs rotating. Then allow that top pocket to continue round a little more. Inhale when you're open. As you exhale, the hip and the pocket go forwards, arm comes up to the ceiling, and that's what brings you all the way back. Take a breath in as you breathe out, opening to the ceiling. Relax through the ribs as much as you can, so feel the front ribs relaxing down and back. And then as you allow the hip to come round, keep dropping the ribs down too. Inhaling, exhale, hip goes forward, arm to ceiling to bring you back into your closed position. A couple more, or however many you feel that you need to really feel the benefit. Feel that you're unraveling a little more each time in sensation. Breath in when you're open, And as you breathe out, forward and back round again. Last one. Exhaling. Ribs. How is it? Pocket drops back. And then as you breathe out, pocket takes you forwards, bringing yourself all the way back and resting the arm down. Into chalk circles. Elbow bends here now. Just feel that you're dropping into the floor, wherever that may be. You've allowed your hip to move pretty much straight away. And the whole movement is really relaxed as you unfold and extend the arm away from you. You're then going to breathe out, and as you breathe out, keep the fingertips low to the floor, on the floor if you can, or only because it gives you some feedback as to whether they may lift away. But if the arm is slightly lifted away from the floor, it's slightly lifted, and you're going to try and keep that distance. So you breathe out, and you're going to try and relax into the movement as you come round. You breathe in when you're open, a bit like you would for your book openings. And as you breathe out, the fingertips come up above your head, tracing a line low to the floor. And that's what brings you back onto your side once more. Breathing out as you open. Inhaling when you're open. And as you exhale, fingers low to the ground, reaching round to bring yourself back. I'm going to do one more. Exhaling. Inhaling. And then up and round to bring myself onto my back. From here I'm going to come into bridging. So I don't need any head cushions, I don't need any support. In fact, I can move those out of the way completely as I just come to find the back of my body once more on the mat. So I'm going to come into my narrow parallel, just have a look down, make sure I am in fact straight, and the back of the head is free and relaxed, and the arms can come down beside me. So just whilst you're organising yourself, moving yourself, feeling like you've got enough space behind you, I just want you to bring your attention to the centre of the chest. So inhaling into the floor and exhaling, just allowing the centre of the chest to drop. Breathing in. Notice a slight lightness through the centre of the chest, a feeling of space between the shoulder blades and the floor. And the space you create between your shoulder blades and the floor, as you breathe in, you're going to fill in as you stand down into your feet, hover your pelvis. As you hover, you can then begin to tilt the dial to 6 on the front of those hips. You're breathing in up at the top of the bridge. You're still soft through the sternum and the sacrum is lifting up high. As you breathe out, think about sighing through the upper body. Allow the sit bones to widen. So you're under tension there. You still want some activity and some support from the back of you. You don't completely relax and let go. And then land your pelvis back down, carefully and controlled as you breathe out from the chest. Exhaling down, stand into your feet. You want this feeling that the pelvis scoops forward, but then it's winding back. The winding back action is quite important. So you actually feel that you lengthen your lower back curve by bringing the pelvis towards 6 as much as it can come towards 6. Take a breath in. Visualize that the sacrum is high, that's back here, and the sternum is low, that's front here. Exhaling to return. Let go through the back ribs. Imagine they splay and spread across your mat, as do your sit bones, to bring yourself down onto the floor. Take a breath in. Notice as you breathe out, soften, stand, feel the backs of the legs, scoop the pelvis up and away from you, and turn the dial on the side of the hips. Now, notice what this sort of experience is like up here, where the sacrum is pushed on up high and the chest is feeling soft. Ribs are fully integrated. You could slide them down like a cylinder to your pelvis. Could you lift the heels? So could you take the weight over your longest toe and then bring the heels back down towards the mat? How's that? Are you able to keep this arrangement as you inhale to lift the heels and then exhale to drop the heels? Could you sense, in fact, that when you lift the heels, the sacrum could come up higher, and then could you lower the heels and keep the sacrum up higher? We're just going to do one more. Of course, you could have done 2 rather than 4. Lower the heels, sacrum feels lifted. Exhaling, sternum softens, rib cage widens and spreads, and sit bones widen to bring your spine all the way back down again. Coming into hamstrings now. Take your band. You could, if you wanted to, place your head on a head cushion. You're going to stirrup up one of your feet, straighten one leg down on your mat, and take one leg up towards the ceiling. You inhale. Think about giving into the tension of the band that you're working against with that slightly straighter leg. And you're going to give in through the front of the ankle, the knee and the hip. And then as you exhale, send the sole of the foot away from you. Think back of leg long as possible. Inhale, give in, soften, lengthen through the back of the ankle, Achilles area, maybe a touch of calf as well as you soften the leg. Inhaling and exhaling. Breath in and breath out. Breath in. I'm going to come into leg circles from here because I feel quite comfortable and organised. If you really wanted to, you could come to the other leg and hamstring prep that as well. Leg's going to come across the body. So I'm using my left leg, which means it'll go to the right first. And you could flip that round if you chose to do the other leg. I'm going to control the circular action and take the leg to the ceiling. So it's going to come across the body. Just notice where you get a little extra of that whiny feeling. At what point of the circle is it for you? What point of the leg is it for you? Is it definitely up the straight middle back of leg? Is it a little bit on the inside, a little bit on the outside? Change direction. It might even be lower down through the calf, depending on where there might be some tension. But see if you can think about the sole of the foot reaching into the band, but the band actually helping with the idea that the thigh bone is a little snug and deeper into the socket as it's winding round as well. So you've got two-way length. Last one. Controlled and supported. And then if you stand into the band with the other foot, swift change over. The leg that you've just worked, acknowledge that change in length and appearance as you straighten it out on the mat in front of you. See if you can keep a sense of ankle flexion and toes pointing upright. And then you'll inhale to soften, toe comes towards shin, and you'll exhale to send the sole of the foot away from you. Breathing in and breathing out. You're asking for that sense of give through the front of the foot and breathing out, as well, of course, as that softening of the knee and the front of the hip as well. You're going to do 2 more. Breath in. Feel free to do more if you feel like you need more. Really beneficial for freeing up the lower back as much as it is through the hamstring area, back of leg and the hips as well. So I'm using my right leg. I'm going to go across the body to the left first, just noticing as I'm moving, and I'm moving slowly rather than cautiously, but I just want to gather some info as to how I'm feeling back there. What parts of the hamstring are feeling stretched? 3 main players, not necessarily straight up the back either. How's the lower leg doing? Change direction. Keep reaching that lower leg long and away from you. Notice where you feel the stretch in your own bodies. And this one is going to be last circle to take you up to the ceiling. So bands can come away. Bring your feet separately down onto the floor there and back into your narrow parallel. We're going to chest lift from here. Interlace your fingers and take them behind your head. So as you're breathing out, you're going to create some length. Could you send the sternum down into the floor first to get you on your way to flexing, and then inhale to lay yourself back down again. Do glance down, exhaling. Notice your organisation. How are things doing here? Ribs sliding down to pelvis. Inhale to lay yourself back down again. Also notice whether there's a large use and involvement of the hip flexors. So if there were, you would find that at your height of chest lift, your pelvis would be tilted to 6 quite strongly. Can you keep the pelvis out of it? Can you feel that if it's going to move, it certainly doesn't move at the start of your curl up. If it does move, maybe it moves at the top end, but could it just not move at all? How would you feel about that? Where would you get to? Concentrate up here. Exhale right through the center of the chest. The ribs soften. They actually push back into the ground slightly eventually as well. And then inhale to lay yourself back down again. We're just going to do one more. Exhaling to lengthen. Sternum, ribs, turning in. And then inhaling to lay yourself back down again. Bring your arms down beside you. We're going to come into leg raises, and that will bring us up into a sequence of assisted roll up and assisted roll down. So as you breathe out, heavy through the back ribs, back of pelvis, and one foot. Inhale with one leg raised, and then exhale to bring that leg all the way back down again. Take a breath in. Breathing out, sensing your connections into the floor and floating one leg. Inhale with your leg raised, and exhale to bring the leg all the way back down again. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, heavy, down and float. Inhale and exhale to return. So you're downward. You could almost imagine that as you breathe out next, the whole of one side of the body connects to the floor a little more firmly. So that could include back of hip, foot, even back of ribs and shoulder blade here. You want to be aware of how much you use that idea. You don't want the pelvis to be tilting side to side. But can it give you a sense of that whole one side of you being really well connected? You might even feel some firing up through the side abdominals as well. Inhale and exhale. And then after you've done this last one, exhaling down to lift up, you're going to keep this leg raised, take a breath in. As you breathe out, the whole body this time, exhaling, relax down towards the floor. As it goes down into the floor, that's your moment to lift your leg. You're going to bring your knees into your chest and hold onto the backs of the legs if that's comfortable for you. They don't have to come all the way in. Holding onto the backs of your legs, and as you breathe out, they're going to go forward. The sternum will soften, the back ribs will push back. You'll keep sending the legs forwards. Always harder this one to start down and take your first one up. But once you're up, take a breath in. As you breathe out, the feet push down. And it's that idea that they're trying to stretch your mat forwards, which automatically brings your pelvis into that winding back to 6 idea. Keep tilting. Remember your bias right at the beginning of the class when you were doing pelvic clock to 6 and 12. Know what it was then and see if you can rectify if there was any deviation side to side. As you breathe out once more, legs will go a fraction ahead of the sternum, of the ribs, of the rest of the body being involved. Just a fraction. And again, so long as you don't bring them in too close to the chest, they're past that 90-degree position. Imagine you're stretching your mat forwards to get you going. Notice what's happening down through the upper sacrum into the lower back segments. That's it, to bring you onto your back. Take a breath in as you breathe out, legs go forwards, chin comes to chest. You deepen through the front body to bring yourself all the way up. From here we're going to come into single leg stretch, the one where you switch the legs, into crisscross, the one where you rotate side to side. As you roll down this time, exhaling as you do so, keep a good firm hold of the backs of the legs. Imagine you're rolling down in the same way you've done previously, back of sacrum into lower back segments. The feet draw in and come up, but your legs are going to come to more of a vertical position. So use your arms to help you stay really deep through the connection in the front of the body. Bring one knee into your chest. It doesn't matter which one you start with. Do you remember your coordination? Big toe replaces big toe, so you'll exhale and you'll switch. And you'll exhale and you'll switch. And you'll exhale and switch. And switch. And switch. Finishing with the same leg you started with. Interlace your fingers, rotating towards that leg, but please think rib to front of hip, elbow wide, and then you'll exhale and you'll switch. And 2, narrow through the legs, and 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Bring your knees into your chest, lay yourself down and bring your feet separately down onto the floor. Arms are going to give the body some room, so moving away from the body. Knees and feet are together. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, sway your legs over to one side. Inhale when you're there, and exhale to return. Breath out, swaying. Inhale when you're here, and exhale to return. Notice as you bypass what would be a center position with your knees up towards the ceiling. Where are you in your clock automatically? Could you negotiate that so that as you exhale and you bypass, you're straight in the middle of 3 and 9. You're straight in the middle of 6 and 12 at the same time, and then you pass on by. Inhale when you're over, exhale to return. This will be the last one. And then next time, sway your legs towards the screen. And that's going to bring you over onto your side. We're going to come into side lift, followed by side lying, followed by side bend. In your side lift position, I want you to look at your organisation and really think about that elbow being below the shoulder, a little bit of outward rotation through the arm. Notice that the shins and feet are behind you and this arm is going to rest on the thigh. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, push down to lift up through the ribs. Imagine the back of the head is against the wall behind you, so watch for chin jutting forward. The pelvis moves forward, inhaling, and as you exhale, you bring yourself all the way back down again. You could stay here or you could extend. Inhale, same idea. As you exhale, you push down to lift the ribs up. Also think about the front ribs staying quite soft as you take the arm up towards the ceiling. You won't notice the pelvis moving forward as much in this position. Inhale and exhale to return. Again, you could have done the sequence with straight legs all the way. Remember, if you need to start with legs bent in order to get up there, you need to revert to one of the others, because these straight legs have nothing to do with how you get up there. It's the organisation of the upper body. So same thing, down to come up, the hand comes away from the side of the body and goes upwards. Your collarbones are wide. You're thinking about being quite streamlined with the back of the head. And then as you exhale, carefully lower yourself all the way back down again. From here we come into side lying, back to knees bent. Now if they were bent for any amount of time during the side lift, you want to bring your knees forward, notice that, and your hand is going to come onto your hip. If the knees move away from each other here, you're in your narrow parallel. You'll inhale to swing your top leg forward and exhale to swing your top leg back. Breath in and breath out. And you're inhaling and you're exhaling. Breath in see if you can continue to maintain that length. This will be your last one. And the legs coming behind you and holding behind you whilst you push yourself up into a Z-sit, looking at the organisation of the hip bones. So you want the hip bones to still be facing forward there, as with the ribs, as with the shoulders. So inhale and lift opposite arm to leg. Exhale and start to soften through the elbow that you're leaning on, which gives you that give down towards the floor. Take a breath in when you're here, and as you breathe out, bring yourself all the way back up again. Inhale to lift. Exhale to bend. Breath in. Are you bending or are you leaning? See if you can explore that. Discover what the difference might be. You still want to feel that on this side that you're bending towards, the curve is long and lifted. You don't feel like you're squashing or tightening too much through that side that you're bending to. From here, lift the opposite arm and just take yourself into a bend in the other direction. You haven't moved your feet, you've just come into the other direction. And then from there, you're going to come into side lift on the other side. So straight legs, straight line here. Notice that your shins are back, elbow below shoulder and slightly further out there. Notice how it feels for your rib cage to be in that position on the other side. Can it feel quite square? And then your hand is on the floor here, sorry, on your leg here. As you breathe out, pushing down into the floor, lifting the ribs up and the rest of the waist and the hip. The pelvis goes forward, and that will give you more of a feeling of being lifted, more height perhaps. Inhale whilst you're up here and exhale to come all the way back down again. Second variation, not too much difference in load. As you breathe out, down to come up, so you could keep the two legs bent if you liked that. Keep drawing in, so you're going to keep lifting in. You send the pelvis forward, but it doesn't quite have the same impact it does with legs bent. So if you're looking for help to get up, I'd keep your legs bent and then exhale to bring yourself all the way back down again. Two straight legs, two flexed ankles. Again, that arm is on the outer part of your leg. As you breathe out again, you'll push down, you'll draw the ribs in. Think about the head being back against the wall behind you. You can just about see these fingers reaching up towards the ceiling. And then as you exhale, you lower yourself all the way back down again. From here, you're laying down, your knees are bent. They'll come into more of a book opening knee position, and your hands can come onto your hip. Knees move away from each other, narrow parallel as if you're on your back. Breathe in to swing your leg forward and breathe out to swoop your leg back. Breath in and breathe out. Inhaling and exhaling. Breath in and breath out. In last one. As the leg swings back, it stays back. We'll hold it there. And then that's going to be the way you bring yourself up into your Z-sit. So that leg's behind you now. You're going to have your hips and your pelvis square to the front. Take a breath in. And as you breathe out, take yourself over to that side. Inhale when you're here and exhale to bring you back. Breath in and breath out. Inhale when you're over and exhale to bring yourself back. Softening through the elbow, elbow drawing in. Inhale when you're here and exhale to come back. This is going to be your last one. Breath in and breath out. Inhaling when you're over and exhaling to bring you back. From here you're going to come into a hands and knees position. I just wanted to show you how we're lining up in the quadruped. So narrow position, hands below the shoulders, knees below the hips. Look at the angles through the body, back of the neck, long, but back of the head lifted. You'll take a breath in, and as you breathe out, right hand, left knee pushed down into the floor. You'll inhale and you'll relax. As you exhale, left hand, right knee pushed down into the floor, and inhale to relax. So you'll notice that there's no big movement swaying side to side. You're subtly connecting with the ground with each breath out. Those two go really well with each other. Nice and still, exhaling down into the floor, opposite arm and leg. Think about the diagonal connection too. So downward with one knee and one hand creates a connection through the torso diagonally too. When you push down into the floor next, and it again doesn't matter which hand and which knee you've pushed down in with, but I do want you to notice that one knee is lighter. It's lighter and slightly lifted away from the mat, so much so that if you continue to push down with that opposite arm and leg, it's relatively easy to slide that leg away from you. Curl the toe under, push away with the toe, back of leg is long and straight, and then if you push away once more with the hands to slide the other leg out, you're long and lengthened. From here, you're going to bring your knees down towards the mat, project your chest forwards to lay down, and that's going to bring you onto your front. Uncurl the tops of the toes for comfort. You're going to breathe in and we're going to extend. So you're going to think about getting longer through the front of the body, from the centre of the chest, forwards and up, gaze lifts, collarbones widen. The back of the neck also appears to be long still. As you breathe out, create length still, keep reaching the sternum forwards and bring yourself all the way back down again. Inhale for length. Crown of the head, collarbones widen, back of the head lifts up. It's the heels of the hands that take you here, much more over than the fingers. The fingers feel quite light on the floor. The reason being is you want some activity through the triceps. So there's no set position as you inhale here that you're looking to get to, other than just appearing longer, more lengthened through the front of your body. Exhale to return. You're going to do one more. Breathing in and lengthening. Widening through the collarbones. Elbows down. Lifting up through the front of the body. And then as you exhale, bring yourself all the way back down again. From here, you're going to come into a child's pose, or something that brings you into a rounded position, however that feels more comfortable for you. So I would advise, if it doesn't feel comfortable for you to lay on your front at all, you just take it out. You can come into a child's pose, or you can repeat something you've already done. Rounded through the body, wherever that may be for you. So change the shape, change the position, use your hands. I find that if you push them into the mat, they just help to turn and open in different parts of your spine. So find where that is. So the movement itself is not about chest to legs. It's more about pelvis to feet and then rounding from up above there. So from here, you're just going to bring yourself up to stand. So bring yourself upright first if that's just a little more pleasant for you, and then you're going to bring yourself up to stand. Standing towards the back of your mat, you'll take a breath in. As you breathe out, carefully nodding your chin to your chest. Front body drawing in, softening to roll yourself down. And then walking out into a plank. However many walks you feel you need to get that feeling of, did I position my hands well enough below the shoulders so that I could lower my pelvis and lift the back of my head up to come to that plank position. And if it doesn't work out so well to start off with, you don't feel so sturdy, you could address it next time. So maybe walking further away, or walking and finishing a little closer, just depending on what happens. I'll do this next one, standing back a little. Again, take a breath in. As you breathe out, nod your chin to your chest. Ribs drawing in. There's a feeling of going up and over something through the front of you here, and arms are relaxed. Notice how it feels. Listen to yourself moving downwards there. How is it when you get to the bottom? Lots of load. Still keep lifted, front of body coming into back of body. And then walking out into your plank again. See if you can learn from your initial plank, your initial position. And then the pelvis lowers and the back of head lifts up simultaneously to try and bring you into that diagonal. You'll send your heels backwards and downwards and walk back to your feet. You'll relax when you get back here. You could soften the knees, let the head go especially, so you are looking more at your own legs rather than on the floor. And then as you breathe out, you lift. The heels go down, the front of the body lifts up. You're heavy and you're dangling and you're letting go, and you've got a feeling of trying to leave the arms down and behind. Notice how you feel. And there we are. We're done. Well done, everyone, and take care.